stay there by the time we go there, you know?
It better be.
Joe. NYPD.
That has to go now.
Buenos días, Francisco. Bienvenido, bienvenido. Bienvenidos al
Green dress.
Sure. Please, thank you.
Ready, Wayne?
Yeah, no, I just realized that.
Dan.
That's it.
Feet out.
Thank you, thank you.
We can bring the other ones now.
On the malt box, you're not plugged in. You're not plugged into the malt box.
Send it, please.
Oh, okay. just feeding the Vatican tone right now, and he'll
That
put the
works.
podium mic up in a second.
Yep. Yeah, after the hopefully you can take the camera full at the same time too.
Yeah, the house is
I don't want to be around for that.
I'm definitely going to cover it. I just don't have great we're going to get. I just don't know that much. You go there, and I'm so much more fun. Yeah. Because it might be hard to get in here, and then, you know, and but up to you.
This is the most entertaining camera to run today, that's for sure.
We're on TV. You don't look at yourself, look at the guy that look at the camera.
can explain one more. That painting is from Benedict XVI, when he was here 2 years ago. Then I have one more. Holy See delegation.
Can we all back up? Can we all
We back up, back up a little bit, please. Thank you. There you go, gentlemen. Shoot.
I'd like to invite you to meet with our staff who are waiting legally. Thank you.
You good now?
Some people never change.
So you don't want me to shoot back towards you later, you just wait. Well, they are.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Holiness Pope Francis and the Secretary General of the United Nations are about to join us. Please be ready. Please be ready. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Holiness Pope Francis and the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Your Holiness Pope Francis, dear colleagues, bienvenidos a las Naciones Unidas. Muchas gracias. I'll be very brief. Your Holiness, I may be the one behind the microphone and in this spotlight, but it is the staff of the United Nations who are working day and night with a strong commitment. I really appreciate, and I hope you will grace them and bless them so that they can continue to work upholding the Charter of the United Nations for world peace, development, and human rights. Thank you for taking the time to meet with them because they are the heart and soul of our work. Regardless of faith, we draw inspiration from your humility and humanity, and from your global call for action on social justice, climate change, and ensuring a life of dignity for all. Let me just say, Your Holiness, thank you for your spiritual guidance and blessings and love for humanity. Thank you, gracias, merci, shukran, siese, spasiba. Thank you. You have the floor.
Dear friends, good morning. On the occasion of my visit to the United Nations, I am pleased to greet you, the men and women who are in many ways the backbone of this organization. I thank you for your welcome, and I am grateful for all that you have done to prepare for my visit. I would ask you also to offer my greetings to the members of your families and to your colleagues who could not be with us today because the lottery. The vast majority of the work done here is not of the kind that makes the news. Behind the scenes, your daily efforts make possible many of the diplomatic, cultural, economic, and political initiatives of the United Nations, which are so important for meeting the hopes and expectations of the peoples who make up a human family. You are experts and experienced field workers, officials and secretaries, translators and interpreters, cleaners and cooks, maintenance and security personnel. Thank you for all you do. Your quiet and devoted work not only contributes to the betterment of the United Nations, it also has great significance for you personally, for how we work expresses our dignity and the kind of persons we are. Many of you have come to this city from countries the world over. As such, you are a microcosm of the peoples which this organization represents and seeks to serve. Like so many other people worldwide, you are concerned about your children's welfare and education. You worry about the future of the planet and what kind of a world we will leave for future generations. But today and every day, I would ask each of you, whatever your capacity, to care one another. Be close to one another. Respect one another. And so, embody among yourselves this organization's ideal of a united human family, living in harmony, working not only for peace, but in peace, working not only for justice, but in a spirit of justice. Dear friends, I bless each one of you from my heart. I will pray for you and your families, and I ask each one of you, please, to remember to pray for me. And if any of you are not believer, I ask you to wish me well. God bless you all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have a moment of silence for the fallen staff members while His Holiness and the Secretary General lay a wreath. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes His Holiness. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm Tom Dory. I work on 51st, also 53rd Select. He's actually next to Paris. Right. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good. So he likes it.
Copy that.
Outside, if you want work, I'll trust you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, His Holiness Pope Francis will now enter the General Assembly Hall. May I request representatives' attention as His Holiness makes his way to the rostrum. Thank you.
The third plenary meeting of the General Assembly is called to order. This morning, we shall hear an address by His Holiness Pope Francis of the Observer State of the Holy See on the occasion of his visit to the United Nations. Your Holiness, heads of state and governments, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to welcome you, Pope Francis, Bishop of Rome, to the General Assembly of the United Nations as head of the Roman Catholic Church and as a defender of the dignity of humanity and the life support systems of our planet. When you recall previously how inseparable the bond is between concern for nature, justice for the poor, commitment to society, and peace, you spoke directly to the three pillars of the United Nations and to the interdependency and interconnectedness between those three pillars. That is the message at the heart of the new and very ambitious 2030 agenda of the Sustainable Development. Here we confront the injustices of poverty, marginalization and discrimination. We recognize the need to reduce inequalities and to protect our common home by changing unsustainable patterns of consumption and production. And we identify the overwhelming need to address the politics of division, corruption, and irresponsibility that fuel conflict and hold back development. As Your Holiness has stated, we are indeed united by the same concern. In 2 months' time, at the climate conference in Paris, that unity will be tested. We can and we must find the wisdom and courage to adopt an ambitious climate agreement to protect people and planet. Similar urgency and unity is required to bring an end to the conflicts and violent extremism affecting many parts of the world today. To date, our collective response to the crisis and to the plight of millions of displaced people and refugees has been at best inadequate and at worst a failure of our humanity. The need for this great hall to address these crises with leadership and action in the spirit of solidarity, dialogue and tolerance cannot be overstated. Therefore, we are looking forward so much to listening to Your Holiness's address to the General Assembly of the United Nations. I welcome you once again. And I now give the floor to the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon.
Su Santidad Papa Francisco, Your Excellency Mr. Moens Liketov, President of the General Assembly, distinguished heads of state and government, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Bienvenidos a las Naciones
Welcome
Unidas.
to the United Nations.
Es un honor
It's an
para
honor
nosotros
for
ser
us
sus anfitriones
to be your
durante
hosts
esta histórica
on
visita.
this historic visit.
For those of us who cherish the United Nations, this chamber is sacred space. In no other hall, from no other platform, can a world leader speak to all humanity. And for decades, that is precisely what world leaders have done. King and queens, presidents, prime ministers, ministers, and popes. But never in our 70-year history has the United Nations been honored to welcome a pope for the opening of the General Assembly. And never in papal history has the head of Catholic Church addressed such an array of world leaders. Your Holiness, thank you for making history. Thank you for demonstrating yet again your remarkable global stature as a man of faith for all faith. Your motto is miserando atque eligiendo, or lowly but chosen. And you strive every day to include the excluded. You are at home, not in palaces, but among the poor, not with the famous, but with the forgotten, not in official portraits, but in selfies with young people. Like the United Nations, you are driven by a passion to help others. Your views move millions. Your teachings bring action. Your example inspires us all. Your visit today coincides with the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. But that is no coincidence. You have often spoken of an integral ecology, one that encompasses the environment, economic growth, social justice, and human well-being. In other words, sustainable development for our common home. The recent papal encyclical Laudato Si defined the climate change as a principal challenge facing humanity and the moral issue. This message is critical as we approach the pivotal climate change conference in Paris in December. Across the global agenda, His Holiness is a resounding voice of conscience. He has cried out for compassion for the world's refugees and migrants, and solidarity with the people trapped in conflict and poverty. He is committed to lifting up struggling families and shutting down modern-day. He believes in opportunity for young people and bridges between communities. In May 2014, Pope Francis met with the full leadership of the United Nations system at the Vatican. He affirmed that we must mobilize the world beyond religious or political differences to forge a shared vision, a life of dignity for all. On the first page of his recent encyclical, Pope Francis said, I quote, "I wish to address every person living on the planet," end quote. Holiness, welcome to the pulpit of the world. We are here to listen. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary General for his statement, and on behalf of the General Assembly, I once again wholeheartedly welcome His Holiness Pope Francis to this hall, and I invite him to address the General Assembly.
Señor Presidente,
Mr. President,
señoras,
ladies
señores,
and gentlemen,
buenos días. Una vez más, siguiendo una tradición de la que me siento honrado, el Secretario General de las Naciones Unidas ha invitado al Papa
has invited the
a
Pope
dirigirse
to
a
address
esta
this
honorable
distinguished assembly
de las
of
naciones.
nations.
En nombre propio y en el de toda la
In my
comunidad
own
católica,
name and that of the entire
señor Ban
Catholic
Ki-moon,
community,
quiero
I
expresarle
wish to
el
express
más
to you,
sincero
Mr. Ban
y
Ki-moon,
cordial agradecimiento.
my heartfelt gratitude.
Agradezco también sus amables palabras.
And I'd like to thank you for your kind words.
Saludo asimismo
I greet
a los jefes de
also
Estado y
the
de
heads of
gobierno
state
aquí
and heads of
presentes,
government present,
a los embajadores,
as well as the
diplomáticos
ambassadors,
y funcionarios
diplomats,
políticos y
and political and
técnicos
technical
que los
officials
acompañan,
accompanying them,
al personal de las Naciones
personnel
Unidas
of the United Nations
empeñado
engaged
en
in
esta
this, the
70ª
70th
sesión de
session
la
of
Asamblea
the General
General,
Assembly.
al personal de todos
The
los
personnel
programas
of the
y
various
agencias de la
programs and
familia
agencies of the
de la
United
ONU
Nations
y a
family,
todos los que de un modo u
and all
otro
those who, in one way or
participan
another,
de
take
esta
part
reunión.
in this meeting.
Por medio de ustedes saludo
And through
también
you,
a los
I also
ciudadanos
greet the
de todas las
citizens of all
naciones
the nations
representadas en este
represented
encuentro.
in this hall.
Gracias por los esfuerzos
I thank
de
you,
todos y de cada
each and
uno
all of
en
you,
bien
for your
de la
efforts in the
humanidad.
service of mankind.
Esta es la quinta vez que un papa
This is
visita
the
las Naciones
fifth
Unidas.
time that a pope has
Lo
visited the
hicieron mis
United
predecesores
Nations.
Pablo
I
VI
follow in the
en
footsteps of my predecessors,
1965,
Pope Paul VI
Juan
in
Pablo II
1965,
en
Pope John Paul II
1979
in
y
1979 and
1995, y mi más
1995,
reciente
and
predecesor,
my most
hoy
recent
el Papa
predecessor,
Emérito
now
Benedicto
Pope
XVI,
Emeritus Benedict
en
XVI
2008.
in 2008.
Todos ellos no ahorraron expresiones
All of them
de
expressed their great
reconocimiento
esteem
para la
for the
organización,
organization,
considerándola la
which they
respuesta
considered
jurídica
the
y política
appropriate
adecuada
juridical
al
and
momento
political
histórico,
response to this present moment of
caracterizado
history,
por la superación
marked by our
tecnológica de
technical
las
ability
distancias
to
y
overcome
fronteras
distances and
y
frontiers, and
aparentemente
apparently
de cualquier
to
límite
overcome
natural
all
a la
natural
afirmación del
limits
poder.
to the exercise of power.
Una respuesta imprescindible,
An essential
ya que el poder
response in as much as
tecnológico
technological
en
power
manos
in the
de
hands
ideologías
of
nacionalistas
nationalistic
o falsamente
or falsely
universalistas es
universalist
capaz
ideologies
de
is
producir
capable of
tremendas
perpetrating
atrocidades.
tremendous atrocities.
No puedo, por menos que
I
asociarme
can
al
only
aprecio de mis
reiterate the
predecesores,
appreciation expressed by my
reafirmando la
predecessors in
importancia
reaffirming
que la
the
Iglesia
importance
Católica
which the Catholic Church
concede a esta
attaches to
institución
this
y las
institution
esperanzas
and the
que
hope
pone en
which
sus
she
actividades.
places in its activities.
La historia de la comunidad organizada
The
de los
history
Estados,
of this organized
representada
community
por
of
las Naciones
states,
Unidas, que
represented by
festeja
the
en
United
estos
Nations,
días
which is
sus
presently
70
celebrating its
aniversarios,
70th
es una
anniversary,
historia de importantes
is one
éxitos
of
comunes,
important common
en un
achievements
periodo de
over a
inusitada
period
aceleración
of
de los
unusually
acontecimientos.
fast-paced changes.
Sin pretensión de exhaustividad,
Without
se
claiming to be
puede
exhaustive, we
mencionar
can mention
la codificación
the
y el desarrollo
codification and
del derecho
development of
internacional,
international law,
la construcción de la
the
normativa
establishment of
internacional
international
de
norms
derechos humanos,
regarding
el
human rights,
perfeccionamiento del derecho humanitario,
advances in
la
humanitarian law,
solución de muchos
the
conflictos
resolution of
y
numerous
operaciones
conflicts,
de paz y
operations of
reconciliación,
peacekeeping and
y
reconciliation,
tantos otros logros
and
en
any
todos los
number of
campos
other
de la
accomplishments in
protección
every area of
internacional del
international
quehacer humano.
activity and
Todas
endeavor.
estas realizaciones
Now, all these
son
achievements
luces
are lights
que contrastan la oscuridad
which help to dispel
del
the darkness
desorden
of the
causado
disorder
por las
caused by
ambiciones descontroladas
unrestrained
y los
ambitions
egoísmos
and
colectivos.
collective forms of
Es cierto
selfishness.
que aún son muchos los graves problemas
Certainly, many grave
no
problems remain
resueltos,
to be resolved.
pero también es
Yet,
evidente
it is clear
que
that
si hubiera faltado toda esta
without all
actividad
those
internacional,
interventions on the
la
international
humanidad
level, mankind
podría no haber
would
sobrevivido
not have been able
al
to
uso
survive
descontrolado
the unchecked
de sus
use
propias
of its own
potencialidades.
possibilities.
Cada uno de estos progresos políticos,
Every one
jurídicos
of
y
these political,
técnicos
juridical, and
son
technical
un camino
advances is a
de
path
concreción
towards
del
attaining the
ideal de la
ideal
fraternidad humana
of human
y
fraternity
un medio
and a
para
means
su mayor
for its greater
realización.
realization.
Rindo pues homenaje
So for this reason I pay homage
a todos los
to all
hombres y
those
mujeres
men and women
que han servido leal
whose
y
loyalty and
sacrificadamente a
self-sacrifice
toda la
have
humanidad
benefited
en
humanity
estos
as a
70
whole
años.
over these past 70
En
years.
particular, quiero recordar hoy
In particular, today I
a
would
los
like to
que han
recall
dado su
those who
vida
have given their lives
por la paz
for
y la
peace and
reconciliación de los
reconciliation
pueblos,
among peoples,
desde Dar a Mashhad
from Dag Hammarskjöld
hasta los muchísimos
to the many
funcionarios
United
de
Nations
todos los
officials at
niveles
every level
fallecidos
who have
en las
been killed
misiones
in the
humanitarias
course of
de paz
humanitarian missions
y
and missions of
reconciliación.
peace and reconciliation.
La experiencia de estos 70
The
años,
experience of the past 70 years,
más allá de todo lo conseguido,
beyond all these achievements,
muestra que la
has made it
reforma y la
clear
adaptación a
that
los
reform and
tiempos
adaptation to the
siempre
times
es
is
necesaria,
always necessary
progresando hacia el
in
objetivo
the pursuit of the
último
ultimate goal
de conceder
of
a
granting
todos los
all
países,
countries
sin excepción,
without exception
una participación
a share
y
in
una incidencia real y
a
equitativa
genuine
en
and
la
equitable
decisión.
influence on decision-making processes.
Esta necesidad de una mayor
The
equidad
need for greater equity
vale
is
especialmente
especially true
para los
in
cuerpos
the
con
case of
efectiva
those
capacidad
bodies with
ejecutiva,
effective
como es el
executive
caso del
capabilities such
Consejo de
as the
Seguridad,
Security Council,
los organismos
the
financieros
financial
y los
agencies,
grupos o
and the
mecanismos
groups or
especialmente
mechanisms which were
creados
specifically
para
created
afrontar
to
las
deal with
crisis
economic
económicas.
crises.
Esto ayudará a limitar
This will help to
todo
limit
tipo de
every kind of
abuso
abuse
o usura,
or usury,
sobre todo con los
especially
países en vías de
where developing
desarrollo.
countries are concerned.
Los organismos financieros
The
internacionales
international
han
financial
de velar
agencies
por el
should
desarrollo
care for the
sostenible
sustainable
de los
development
países
of
y la
countries
no sumisión
and
asfixiante
should ensure that
de
they are not
estos a
subjected
sistemas
to
crediticios
oppressive lending systems which
los organismos financieros
so the international
internacionales
financial agencies
han de velar por el desarrollo
should care for
sostenible
the
de los
sustainable
países
development of countries
y la no sumisión asfixiante de
and
estos
should ensure that
a
they are not
sistemas
subjective to
crediticios que
oppressive
lejos de
lending
promover
systems
el
which,
progreso,
far from promoting
someten a las
progress,
poblaciones
subject people
a mecanismos
to
de mayor
mechanisms
pobreza,
which generate
exclusión
greater
y
poverty,
dependencia.
exclusion and dependence.
La labor de las Naciones Unidas,
The work of the
a partir
United
de los
Nations,
postulados del
according to the
preámbulo
principles
y de los
set
primeros
forth in the
artículos
preamble
de
and the
su
first
Carta
articles of its
Constitucional,
founding charter,
puede ser vista como el
can be seen
desarrollo
as the
y la promoción
development
de la
and
soberanía
promotion
del derecho,
of the rule of law,
sabiendo que la justicia es
based on the
requisito
realization that
indispensable
justice is an
para
essential
obtener
condition
el
for
ideal de
achieving
la
the ideal
fraternidad
of
universal.
universal fraternity.
En este contexto,
In
cabe
this
recordar
context,
que la
it is
limitación
helpful to
del
recall
poder
that the limitation of
es
power
una
is an
idea
idea
implícita
implicit
en el
in the
concepto
concept
de derecho.
of law itself.
Dar a cada uno lo suyo,
To give to each
siguiendo
his
la
own,
definición
to cite the
clásica de
classic definition
justicia,
of justice,
significa
means
que
that
ningún
no
individuo
human
o grupo
individual or
humano
group
se puede
can consider
considerar
itself
omnipotente,
absolute,
autorizado a pasar por
permitted to
encima de la
bypass
dignidad
the
y de
dignity
los derechos
and the rights
de las otras
of other
personas
individuals
singulares o de sus
or their
agrupaciones
social groupings.
sociales. La distribución fáctica del
The
poder
effective distribution of
político,
power,
económico,
political,
de
economic,
defensa, tecnológico,
defense-related,
etc.,
technological, etc.,
entre una pluralidad de
among
sujetos
a
y la
plurality of
creación
subjects
de
and
un
the
sistema
creation of a
jurídico
juridical
de
system
regulación de
for
las
regulating
pretensiones e intereses
claims and interests
concreta
are
la
one
limitación
concrete
del
way
poder.
of limiting power.
El panorama mundial hoy nos presenta, sin
Yet
embargo,
today's world presents
muchos
us
falsos derechos
with many false
y a la
rights,
vez
and at the same time,
grandes sectores
broad
indefensos,
sectors which are vulnerable,
víctimas más bien de un
victims
mal ejercicio del
of
poder.
power that is badly exercised.
El ambiente natural y el vasto
The
mundo de
natural
mujeres y hombres
environment and the vast
excluidos,
ranks of men and women who are
dos
excluded.
sectores íntimamente unidos entre
These
sí, que las
sectors
relaciones
closely
políticas
interconnected
y
and made
económicas
increasingly
preponderantes
fragile by the
han
dominant political
convertido
and
en
economic
partes
relationships.
frágiles de la realidad. Por eso hay que afirmar con fuerza
That is why
sus derechos,
their rights must be
consolidando
forcefully
la
affirmed
protección
by
del
working to
ambiente
protect the
y
environment
acabando con la
and
exclusión.
by putting an end to exclusion.
Ante todo, hay que afirmar
First,
que
it
existe
must
un
be
verdadero
stated
derecho
that a
del
true
ambiente.
right of the
Por un
environment does
doble
exist,
motivo.
and for two reasons.
Primero, porque los seres
First,
humanos
because
somos parte
we
del
human
ambiente.
beings are part of the environment.
Vivimos en
We
comunión
live in
con
communion
él.
with it.
Porque el mismo ambiente
Since the
comporta
environment
límites
itself
éticos
entails
que la acción humana
ethical
debe
limits
reconocer y
which
respetar.
human activity must acknowledge
El
and
hombre,
respect.
aun cuando está
Man,
dotado de capacidades
For all
inéditas
his
que
remarkable
muestran
gifts,
una
which are signs
singularidad
of a
que trasciende
uniqueness
el
which
ámbito
transcends the
físico y
spheres of
biológico,
physics and biology,
es al mismo
is
tiempo
at the same
una
time
porción de
a
ese ambiente.
part of these spheres.
Tiene un cuerpo formado por elementos
He possesses
físicos,
a body shaped
químicos
by
y
physical,
biológicos
chemical, and biological
y
elements,
solo puede
and can only
sobrevivir
survive
y
and
desarrollarse
develop
si el
if
ambiente
the
ecológico
ecological
le es
environment
favorable.
is favorable.
Cualquier daño al ambiente, por
Any harm
tanto,
done to the
es un
environment,
daño
therefore,
a
is
la
harm
humanidad.
to humanity.
Segundo, porque cada
Second,
una de las
because
criaturas,
every creature,
especialmente las vivientes,
particularly a living creature,
tiene un valor en sí
has an
misma,
intrinsic value.
de existencia,
In
de
its
vida, de
existence, its
belleza
life, its
y de
beauty, and
independencia
its
con las demás
independence with other
criaturas.
creatures.
Los cristianos, junto a
We
otras
Christians, together
religiones
with the other
monoteístas,
monotheistic religions,
creemos que el
believe that
universo
the universe
proviene
is
de
the
una
fruit of a
decisión
loving
de amor
decision
del Creador
by the Creator,
que permite al hombre
who permits
servirse
man
respetuosamente de la
respectfully to
creación
use creation
para el bien de
for the
sus
good of his
semejantes
fellow
y para la
man
gloria del
and for the
Creador,
glory of the Creator.
pero que no puede
But he is
abusar
not
de ella
authorized
y
to
mucho
abuse it,
menos
and much
está
less
autorizado
is he
a
authorized to
destruirla.
destroy it.
Para todas las Para todas las creencias religiosas, el
In all
ambiente
religions,
es un
the
bien
environment is a
fundamental.
fundamental good.
El abuso y la destrucción del
The
ambiente
misuse
al
and
mismo
destruction
tiempo
of the environment
van
are also
acompañados
accompanied
por un
by
imparable
a relentless
proceso
process
de
of
exclusión.
exclusion.
En efecto, un afán egoísta e ilimitado
In
de
effect,
poder
a selfish
y
and
de
boundless
bienestar
thirst for
material
power and material
lleva
prosperity
tanto a
leads
abusar de los
both to the
recursos materiales
misuse of
disponibles
available
como
natural
a excluir
resources
a los
and to the
débiles
exclusion of the
y
weak,
con menos habilidades,
and
ya
the
sea por tener
disadvantage,
capacidades
either
diferentes,
because they are differently
discapacidades,
abled, handicapped,
o porque
or
están privados de
because
los
they lack
conocimientos e
adequate
instrumentos
information
técnicos
and
adecuados
technical expertise,
o poseen
or are
insuficiente
incapable
capacidad
of
de decisión
decisive
política.
political action.
La exclusión económica y social
Economic and
es
social
una
exclusion is a
negación
complete
total
denial
de la
of
fraternidad humana
human fraternity
y un gravísimo
and
atentado
a
a
very
los
grave
derechos
offense
humanos
against
y al
human
ambiente.
rights and the environment.
Los más pobres son los que más
And the
sufren
poorest are
estos
those who suffer
atentados
most from such
por un
offenses
triple grave
for
motivo.
three serious
Son
reasons.
descartados por la sociedad.
They are cast
Son
off
al
by
mismo
a
tiempo
society,
obligados a vivir
forced to
del
live
descarte
of what is discarded,
y deben
and
injustamente
suffer unjustly
sufrir
from
las consecuencias
the
del abuso del
consequences of
ambiente.
the abuse of the environment.
Estos fenómenos conforman
These
la hoy
phenomena
tan
are part
difundida
of today's
e inconscientemente
widespread
consolidada
and quietly growing
cultura del descarte.
culture of waste.
Lo dramático de toda esta situación de exclusión
Dramatic
e
reality,
inequidad,
this whole situation of
con sus
exclusion
claras
and inequality with
consecuencias,
its evident
me lleva,
effects,
junto a
has
todo el
led
pueblo
me,
cristiano
in union with
y
the
a
entire
tantos
Christian
otros,
people and
a
many
tomar
others,
conciencia
to take
también
stock also
de mi grave
of my
responsabilidad
grave
al respecto,
responsibility in this regard.
por lo cual alzo mi voz
And
junto a
therefore
la
to
de
speak
todos
out,
aquellos
together with all
que
those
anhelan
who are
soluciones urgentes
urgently
y
needed
efectivas.
and effective solutions.
La adopción de la Agenda
The adoption
2030
of
para el
the
desarrollo
2030
sostenible
Agenda for
en la
Sustainable
cumbre
Development
mundial
at the World
que
Summit,
iniciará hoy
which
mismo
opens today,
es una
is an
importante
important
señal de
sign
esperanza.
of hope.
Confío también que la conferencia de
I am
París
similarly confident
sobre
that
el
the
cambio
Paris Conference
climático
on climatic change
logre
will
acuerdos
secure
fundamentales y
fundamental
eficaces.
and effective agreements.
No bastan, sin embargo, los compromisos asumidos solemnemente,
Solemn commitments, however,
aunque
are not enough,
constituyen
even though
ciertamente
they are
un
a
paso
necessary step
necesario para la
towards
solución.
solutions.
La definición clásica de justicia
The
a
classic
que aludí
definition of
anteriormente
justice, which I mentioned
contiene
earlier,
como elemento
contains,
esencial
as one of its
una
essential
voluntad
elements, a
constante
constant
y
and
perpetua.
perpetual will.
Justitia est
Justitia est
constans
constans
et perpetua
perpetua
voluntas
voluntas
ius
ius sum
cuique
quique tribuendi.
El mundo reclama de
Our
todos
world
los
demands
gobernantes
of all governments,
una voluntad
leaders, a will which
efectiva,
is effective,
práctica,
practical,
constante,
constant,
de pasos
with concrete
concretos y
steps
medidas
and
inmediatas
immediate measures
para
for
preservar
preserving
y
and
mejorar
improving
el ambiente
the
natural
natural environment,
y vencer
and
cuanto
thus
antes el
putting an
fenómeno
end
de
as
la
quickly as possible
exclusión
to the
social
phenomenon of
y
social and
económica,
economic
con sus
exclusion,
tristes consecuencias
with its painful
de trata
consequences
de
of
seres
human
humanos,
trafficking,
comercio de
the
órganos y tejidos
marketing
humanos,
of human organs and tissues,
explotación sexual
sexual
de niños y
exploitation of
niñas,
boys and girls,
trabajo esclavo,
slave
incluyendo
labor,
la prostitución,
including prostitution,
tráfico de
the
drogas y de
drug
armas,
and weapons
terrorismo
trade,
y
terrorism,
crimen internacional
and
organizado.
international organized crime.
Es tal la magnitud. Es tal la magnitud
Such
de
is the
esta situación
magnitude of these
y el grado de
situations
vidas
and the
inocentes
toll in
que va
innocent lives
cobrando
that
que
we
hemos de evitar
must avoid
toda
every
tentación
temptation
de caer
to fall
en
into
un
a
nominalismo
declarationist
declaracionista
nominalism
con efecto
which
tranquilizador
would
en la
just
conciencia.
assuage our own consciences.
Debemos cuidar que nuestras
We need
instituciones
to ensure that our
sean
institutions are
realmente
truly effective
efectivas en la lucha
in the struggle
contra todos
against
estos
all
flagelos.
these scourges.
La multiplicidad y complejidad de
The
los
number and
problemas
complexity of the problems
exige
require
contar
that we possess
con instrumentos técnicos
technical
de medida.
instruments of
Esto,
verification,
empero,
but this
comporta un doble
involves
peligro.
two risks.
Limitarse al ejercicio
We
burocrático
can rest content with
de
the bureaucratic
redactar
exercise
largas
of drawing up long lists
de buenos
of good
propósitos,
proposals,
metas, objetivos,
goals,
indicaciones
objectives, and
estadísticas,
statistical
o
indicators,
creer
or
que una única
we can
solución
think that a
teórica
single,
y a
theoretical,
priorística
and a
dará
priori
respuesta
solution
a todos
will
los
provide an
desafíos.
answer to all these challenges.
No hay que perder de vista
It must never
en
be
ningún
forgotten
momento que la acción
that
política y
political and
económica
economic
solo
activity
es
is
eficaz
only effective
cuando se la
when it
entiende
is
como
understood
una
as
actividad
a
prudencial,
prudential activity
guiada por un concepto perenne de
guided by a
justicia
perennial
y que
concept
no
of
pierde de
justice
vista en
and
ningún
consciously
momento
conscious
que antes y
of the
más
fact
allá
that above
de
and
los planes
beyond
y
our
programas
plans and
hay
programs,
mujeres y hombres concretos,
we are dealing with
iguales
real
a los
men and
gobernantes,
women
que
who live,
viven, luchan,
struggle
sufren
and suffer,
y que muchas veces
and
se ven
are often
obligados a
forced
vivir
to live
miserablemente
in
privados
great
de
poverty
cualquier
and
derecho.
deprived of all rights.
Para que estos hombres y mujeres
To
concretos
enable these real men and
puedan
women to
escapar
escape
de la
from
pobreza
extreme
extrema,
poverty,
hay que
we
permitirles
must allow
ser
them
dignos
to be
actores de su
dignified
propio
agents of their own
destino.
destiny.
El desarrollo humano integral y el
Integral
pleno
human development
ejercicio
and the
de la
full
dignidad humana
exercise of human
no
acts
pueden
of
ser
dignity
impuestos.
cannot be
Deben
imposed.
ser edificados
They must be
y
built up
desplegados
and
por cada uno,
allowed to unfold
por
for each
cada
individual, for
familia,
every
en
family,
comunión con
in
los demás
communion with
hombres
others,
y en una justa
and
relación
in a right
con todos los
relationship
círculos
with all
en los
those
que se
areas
desarrolla la
in which
socialidad humana,
human social life
amigos,
develops,
comunidades,
friends,
aldeas,
communities,
municipios,
towns,
escuelas,
cities, schools,
empresas,
businesses,
sindicatos, provincias,
unions,
naciones.
provinces and
Esto
nations.
supone y
Now,
exige
this
el derecho a la
proposes
educación,
the right to
también
education,
para las niñas,
also for girls,
excluidas en algunas
who are
partes.
excluded in certain places.
Derecho a la educación que se
The
asegura
right
en
to
primer
education,
lugar
which is ensured
respetando
first and
y
foremost
reforzando
by
el
respecting and
derecho primario de
reinforcing
la
the
familia a
primary
educar
right of the
y el
family
derecho de las
to educate
iglesias
its
y de
children,
las
as well
agrupaciones
as the right of
sociales
churches and
a
social groups
sostener y
to
colaborar con
support
las
and
familias
assist
en la
families in
formación
the
de sus hijas
education
e hijos.
of their
La
boys and
educación,
girls.
así concebida,
Education
es
conceived
la
in this
base
way is
para
the
la
basis for
realización
the
de
implementation
la Agenda
of the
2030
2030
y para
agenda
recuperar el
and
ambiente.
for reclaiming the environment.
Al mismo tiempo, los gobernantes
At the same time,
han de hacer todo lo
government
posible
leaders must do everything
a fin de que
possible
todos
to
puedan
ensure
tener
that all
la
can
mínima
have the
base
minimum
material y espiritual
spiritual and
para
material
ejercer su
means needed
dignidad
to live in
y para
dignity
formar y
and
mantener
to
una
create and
familia,
support a
que
family,
es la
which
célula
is the
primaria
primary
de
cell
cualquier
of
desarrollo
any
social.
social development.
Este mínimo absoluto tiene en lo material tres
In
nombres:
practical terms, this absolute minimum
techo,
has three names:
trabajo y tierra.
lodging, labor, and
Y un-
land.
Y un nombre en lo espiritual:
And one spiritual name,
libertad de espíritu,
spiritual
que
freedom,
compromete la libertad
which
religiosa,
includes religious
el
freedom,
derecho a la
the
educación
right to
y
education,
todos los
and
otros derechos
all
cívicos.
other civil rights.
Por todo esto, la medida
Now,
y el
for all this,
indicador más simple y
the
adecuado
simplest and best measure and
del
indicator of the
cumplimiento de la
implementation
nueva agenda
of the
para
new
el
agenda
desarrollo será
for
el
development
acceso efectivo,
will be
práctico
effective,
e inmediato
practical and
para
immediate
todos
access
a
on
los
the part of
bienes
all to
materiales y
essential
espirituales
material and
indispensables:
spiritual goods,
vivienda propia,
housing,
trabajo digno y
dignified
debidamente
and properly
remunerado,
remunerated
alimentación
employment,
adecuada
adequate
y
food
agua
and
potable,
drinking water,
libertad religiosa
religious
y
freedom,
más en
and
general
more generally,
libertad de espíritu y
spiritual freedom
educación.
and
Al
education.
mismo tiempo, estos pilares
Now,
del
these
desarrollo humano
pillars of
integral
integral
tienen
human
un
development
fundamento común,
have a common
que es el
foundation,
derecho a la vida
and this is the right
y
to
más en
life,
general
and more
lo que
generally,
podríamos
what
llamar
we could
el
call
derecho a la
the right to
existencia de la misma
existence of
naturaleza humana.
human nature itself.
La crisis ecológica,
The
junto
ecological
con
crisis,
la
together
destrucción
with the
de buena
large-scale
parte de la
destruction of
biodiversidad,
biodiversity,
puede poner en peligro la
can
existencia
threaten
misma
the very
de la
existence of
especie
the
humana.
human species.
Las nefastas consecuencias de un
The
irresponsable
painful
desgobierno de
consequences
la
of an
economía
irresponsible
mundial,
mismanagement of the global
guiados
economy,
solo por la
guided only
ambición
by
del
the
lucro y
ambition
del
for
poder,
wealth and power,
deben ser
must
un
serve
llamado
as
a una
a
severa
summons to a
reflexión sobre el
forthright
hombre.
reflection on man.
El hombre no es solamente una
Man is not
libertad
only a
que él se
freedom
crea por
which
sí
he
solo.
creates for
El
himself.
hombre no se crea a
Man
sí
does not
mismo.
create
Es
himself.
espíritu y
He
voluntad,
is spirit
pero también
and will,
naturaleza.
but also nature.
La creación se ve perjudicada
Creation is
donde
compromised,
nosotros
where
mismos
we ourselves
somos las
have
últimas
the
instancias.
final word.
El derroche de la creación comienza
The misuse of
donde
creation
no reconocemos
begins
ya
when we no longer
ninguna
recognize
instancia
any
por
instance
encima de
above
nosotros,
ourselves,
sino que solo nos vemos a
when we see
nosotros
nothing
mismos.
else but ourselves.
Por eso la defensa del ambiente y la
Consequently,
lucha contra
the
la
defense of the
exclusión
environment and the fight against
exigen el
exclusion
reconocimiento
demand that we
de una
recognize
ley moral
a
inscrita en la
moral law
propia
written
naturaleza
into
humana,
human nature itself,
que comprende la
one which
distinción
includes the
natural
natural
entre
difference
hombre
between
y
man and
mujer
woman,
y el
and the
absoluto
absolute
respeto de
respect
la
for
vida
life
en todas
in
sus
all its
etapas y
stages
dimensiones.
and dimensions.
Sin el reconocimiento de unos límites
Without the recognition
éticos
of
naturales
certain incontestable natural ethical
insalvables
limits,
y sin la
and
actuación
without the immediate
inmediata de
implementation
aquellos
of those
pilares
pillars
del
of
desarrollo humano
integral
integral,
human development,
el ideal de
the
salvar
ideal
las
of
futuras
saving succeeding
generaciones
generations
del
from the
flagelo de la
scourge of
guerra
war
y de promover
and
el
of
progreso
promoting
social
social
y un más
progress
elevado
and
nivel de
better
vida
standards of life
en
in
una
larger
más amplia libertad,
freedom,
corre el riesgo
risks
de
becoming
convertirse en un
an
espejismo
unattainable
inalcanzable,
illusion,
o peor aún, en palabras
or even
vacías
worse, just
que sirven
idle
de
chatter
excusa
which serves
para
as a
cualquier
cover
abuso
for
y
all
corrupción,
kinds of abuse and
o
corruption,
para promover
or for
una
carrying out an
colonización ideológica
ideological
a través de la
colonization by the
imposición de
imposition
modelos y estilos
of
de vida
anomalous models and
anómalos,
lifestyles
extraños a la
which are
identidad de los
alien
pueblos
to people's
y en
identity
último término
and, in the
irresponsables.
end, are irresponsible.
La guerra es la negación
War
de
is the
todos los
negation of all
derechos
rights,
y una
and
dramática
it's a
agresión al
dramatic
ambiente.
assault on the environment.
Si se quiere un verdadero desarrollo
If we
humano
want true,
integral
integral
para
human
todos,
development for all,
se debe continuar
we must work
incansablemente
tirelessly
con la tarea de
to
evitar la guerra
avoid
entre las
war
naciones
between
y
nations
los pueblos.
and between peoples.
Para tal fin, hay que asegurar el
To
imperio
this end, there's a need to
incontestado
ensure the
del
uncontested
derecho y el
rule of law
infatigable
and tireless
recurso a la
recourse to
negociación, a
negotiation,
los buenos oficios y al arbitraje,
mediation, and
como propone la
arbitration as
Carta de
proposed
las
by
Naciones
the Charter
Unidas,
of the United Nations,
verdadera norma
which
jurídica
constitutes truly
fundamental.
a fundamental juridical
La
norm.
experiencia de los 70 años
The
de
experience of these
existencia
70
de las
years
Naciones Unidas
since the founding of the
en
United
general,
Nations in general,
y en particular la
and in
experiencia de
particular
los
the
primeros
experience of
15 años
these
del
first
tercer
15
milenio
years of the third millennium
muestran tanto la
reveal both the
eficacia de la
effectiveness
plena
of the
aplicación
full
de las
application
normas
of international
internacionales
norms
como la
and the
ineficacia de su
ineffectiveness
incumplimiento.
of their lack of enforcement.
Si se respeta y aplica la Carta de las Naciones Unidas
When the Charter
con
of the United
transparencia
Nations is
y
respected and
sinceridad,
applied with
sin segundas
transparency and
intenciones,
sincerity and without
como un punto de
ulterior
referencia
motives,
obligatorio de
as an obligatory
justicia
reference
y no
point of
como un
justice,
instrumento
and
para
not
disfrazar
as a means
intenciones
for
espurias,
masking
se
spurious
alcanzan
intentions,
resultados de paz.
peaceful results will be attained.
Cuando en cambio
When, on
se
the other
confunde la
hand,
norma
the
como un
norm
simple
is considered
instrumento
simply as an
para
instrument
utilizar
to
cuando
be used
resulta
whenever
favorable
it proves
y para
favorable,
eludir cuando
and
no
then to
lo
be
es,
avoided when it
se
is not
abre una
a
verdadera
true
caja de Pandora
Pandora's
de
box
fuerzas
is opened,
incontrolables
releasing
que
uncontrollable
dañan
forces which
gravemente
gravely
las
harm
poblaciones
defenseless
inermes, el
populations,
ambiente cultural e
the cultural
incluso el
milieu,
ambiente biológico.
and even the biological environment.
El preámbulo y el primer artículo de la Carta de las Naciones
The
Unidas
preamble and the first article of the
indican
Charter of the
los
United
cimientos
Nations
de la
set
construcción
forth the
jurídica
foundations
internacional.
of the international juridical
La
framework,
paz, la solución pacífica de las
peace,
controversias
the pacific
y el
solution of
desarrollo de
disputes, and the
relaciones de
development of
amistad
friendly
entre las
relations
naciones.
between nations.
Contrasta fuertemente con estas
Now,
afirmaciones
strongly opposed to
y
such
las niega
statements,
en la práctica
and in practice
la
denying them,
tendencia
is the
siempre presente
constant
a la
tendency to the
proliferación de las
proliferation
armas,
of arms,
especialmente
especially
las de destrucción
weapons of
masiva,
mass
como
destruction,
pueden ser las
such as
nucleares.
nuclear weapons.
Una ética y un derecho
An ethics and
basados
a law
en la amenaza
based on
de
the threat
destrucción mutua
of mutual
y
destruction
posiblemente
and
de
possibly
toda la
the
humanidad
destruction of all mankind
son
are
contradictorios y
self-contradictory
constituyen un
and
fraude
represent
a toda la
an
construcción
affront
de las
to
Naciones
the
Unidas,
entire framework
que
of the United
pasarían a ser
Nations,
Naciones
which would end
Unidas
up
por
as
el
a
miedo y la
nations
desconfianza.
united by fear and distrust.
Hay que empeñarse por un mundo
There
sin
is
armas
urgent need
nucleares,
to work for a world
aplicando
free of
plenamente
nuclear
el
weapons,
Tratado
in
de
full
no
application of the
proliferación
Non-Proliferation
en la letra
Treaty,
y en el
in
espíritu,
letter and
hacia una
spirit,
total prohibición
towards
de
the
estos
goal of a
instrumentos.
complete prohibition of these weapons.
El reciente acuerdo
The
sobre
recent
la cuestión
agreement reached
nuclear
on the
en una
nuclear
región
question
sensible
in
de
a
Asia y
sensitive
Oriente
region
Medio
of Asia and the
es
Middle
una
East
prueba de
is
las
proof of the
posibilidades de la buena
potential
voluntad
of
política y
political
del derecho
goodwill and of law
ejercidos con
exercised with
sinceridad,
sincerity,
paciencia y
patience,
constancia.
and constancy.
Hago votos para que este
I
acuerdo
express my
sea
hope that this
duradero y
agreement will be
eficaz
lasting and
y dé los
efficacious
frutos
and
deseados
bring forth the
con la
desired fruits
colaboración
with the
de todas
cooperation
las
of
partes
all the
implicadas.
parties involved.
En este sentido, no faltan duras pruebas
In this
de las
sense,
consecuencias
hard evidence is
negativas
not lacking of
de las
the negative
intervenciones
effects of
políticas y militares
military
no
and political
coordinadas
interventions
entre los
which are not
miembros de la
coordinated
comunidad
between members of the
internacional.
international community.
Por eso, aún deseando
For this
no
reason,
tener la necesidad
while
de hacerlo,
regretting to have to
no
do
puedo
so,
dejar de reiterar
I must
mis
renew
repetidos
my repeated
llamamientos
appeals
en relación con
regarding
la dolorosa
the painful
situación de
situation
todo el Oriente
of the
Medio,
entire Middle
del
East,
norte de
North
África,
Africa,
de otros países
and
africanos,
other African
donde
countries,
los cristianos, junto
where
con otros
Christians,
grupos
together with
culturales
other
o
cultural or
étnicos,
ethnic groups,
incluso junto con
and
aquella
even
parte
members
de los miembros de la religión
of the
mayoritaria
majority
que no quiere
religion
dejarse
who have
envolver
no
por
desire to
el
be
odio y la
caught
locura,
up in
han
hatred and
sido
folly,
obligados
have been
a ser
forced
testigos de
to
la
witness the
destrucción
destruction
de sus lugares
of
de
their
culto,
places
de
of
su
worship,
patrimonio cultural y religioso,
their cultural and
de sus
religious
casas y
heritage,
haberes,
their houses
y
and
han sido
property,
puestos en la disyuntiva de
and
huir
have faced the
o pagar
alternative
su
either
adhesión
of
al bien y a
fleeing
la paz
or of paying
con
for
la
their
propia
adhesion to
vida
good and to
o
peace
con la
by their
esclavitud.
own lives or by enslavement.
Estas realidades deben constituir un
These
serio
realities
llamado
should serve as
a un
a
examen
grave
de
summons
conciencia
to an
de los
examination
que
of
están a
conscience
cargo de la
on the
conducción
part of those
de los
charged with the
asuntos
conduct of
internacionales,
international affairs,
no solo en los casos de
and
persecución
not only in
religiosa o
cases of
cultural,
religious or cultural
sino en cada
persecution,
situación
but
de
in every
conflicto,
situation of
como
conflict,
Ucrania,
as in Ukraine,
Siria,
Syria,
Irak, Libia,
Iraq,
Sudán del
Libya,
Sur, en
South
la región
Sudan,
de los Grandes Lagos.
and the Great Lakes
Hay
region.
rostros concretos antes que
human
intereses de
beings
parte,
take
por
precedence over
legítimos
partisan
que
interests,
sean.
however legitimate the
En las
latter may
guerras y
be.
conflictos
In wars
hay
and
seres
conflicts,
humanos
there are
singulares,
individual persons,
hermanos y
our
hermanas
brothers
nuestros,
and sisters,
hombres y mujeres,
men and women,
jóvenes y ancianos,
young and old,
niños y niñas
boys and
que
girls,
lloran,
who weep,
sufren y
suffer,
mueren.
and die.
Seres humanos que se convierten
beings
en
who
material
are
de
easily
descarte
discarded
cuando la
when our
actividad
only
consiste solo
response is to
en
draw up lists
enumerar problemas,
of problems,
estrategias y
strategies,
discusiones.
and disagreements.
Como pedía al secretario general de las Naciones
As I wrote in
Unidas
my letter to the
en
Secretary
mi
General
carta
of the
del 9 de
United Nations
agosto de
on the
2014,
9th of August
la más
2014,
elemental comprensión de
the
la
most basic
dignidad humana
understanding of human dignity
obliga a la comunidad
compels the
internacional,
international community,
en particular a través de las
particularly
normas
through the
y los
norms
mecanismos
and
del
mechanisms
derecho
of international
internacional,
law,
a hacer todo
to
lo
do all that
posible
it can
para detener
to stop
y prevenir
and to prevent
ulteriores violencias
further systematic
sistemáticas
violence
contra las minorías
against
étnicas
ethnic
y
and
religiosas
religious
y para
minorities
proteger
and
a las
to
poblaciones
protect
inocentes.
innocent peoples.
Y en esta misma línea quisiera hacer
Along the same
mención
lines, I would
a
mention
otro tipo
another
de
kind of
conflictividad
conflict,
no siempre
which is
tan
not always
explicitada,
so open,
pero que
yet is
silenciosamente
silently
viene cobrando la muerte de millones de personas.
millions of people.
Otra clase de guerra que viven muchas
Another
de
kind
nuestras
of war
sociedades
experienced by many
con
of
el
our
fenómeno
societies
del
as a
narcotráfico.
result of the narcotics trade.
Una guerra asumida
A war
y pobremente
which is
combatida.
taken for granted
El
but poorly
narcotráfico,
fought.
por su
Drug
propia
trafficking
dinámica,
is, by its very
va
nature,
acompañado de la
accompanied
trata de
by
personas,
trafficking in
del
persons,
lavado de
money
activos,
laundering,
del tráfico de armas,
the arms
de la
trade,
explotación infantil
child
y
exploitation,
de otras
and
formas
other
de
forms
corrupción.
of corruption.
Corrupción que ha penetrado los
Corruption which
distintos
has
niveles de la
penetrated
vida
to the different
social,
levels of
política,
social,
militar,
political,
artística
military,
y
artistic,
religiosa,
and religious life,
generando en muchos casos
and in many
una
cases
estructura
has given rise
paralela
to a
que
parallel
pone en
structure
riesgo
which
la
threatens the
credibilidad de
credibility
nuestras
of our
instituciones.
institutions.
Comencé esta
I
intervención
began this speech
recordando las
recalling
visitas de mis
the visits
predecesores.
of my predecessors.
Quisiera ahora que mis palabras fueran
And now
especialmente
I
como
would
una
hope that my words
continuación
will be taken above all as a
de las palabras
continuation
finales
of the
del
final
discurso
words
de
of
Pablo
the address
VI,
of Pope Paul VI,
pronunciado hace casi exactamente
spoken almost
50 años,
exactly 50 years ago,
pero de valor perenne.
but they remain ever timely.
Cito:
And I quote,
ha llegado la hora en
"The
que
hour
se
has
impone
come
una
when a
pausa,
pause,
un momento de
a
recogimiento,
moment of recollection,
de reflexión,
reflection,
casi de oración.
even of prayer,
Volver a pensar en nuestro común origen, en nuestra historia,
is absolutely needed
en
so that
nuestro
we may
destino
think back
común.
over our common origin,
Nunca como hoy
our
ha
history, our
sido
common
tan
destiny.
necesaria la conciencia moral del
The
hombre,
appeal to the moral
porque
conscience
el
of man
peligro
has never been
no
as necessary as it is
viene ni
today.
del progreso
For the danger
ni de la
comes neither from
ciencia,
progress nor
que
from
bien
science.
utilizados
If these are
podrán
used
resolver
well,
muchos de los graves
they can help
problemas
to solve
que
a great
afligen a la
number of the
humanidad.
serious problems besetting mankind.
Entre otras cosas, sin duda,
Among
la
other
genialidad
things,
humana bien
human
aplicada
genius, well
ayudará a
applied,
resolver
will
los graves
surely help to meet
desafíos
the great
de la
challenges
degradación
of
ecológica y de la
ecological
exclusión.
deterioration and of exclusion.
Continúo con Pablo VI.
And I continue in quoting
El
Paul
verdadero
VI.
peligro
The
está en el
real danger
hombre
comes from
que
man,
dispone de
who has
instrumentos
at his
cada
disposal
vez más
ever more
poderosos
powerful
capaces de llevar
instruments
tanto a la ruina
that are
como a las más
as well
altas
fitted to bring
conquistas.
about ruin as they are to achieve
Aquí
lofty
Pablo VI.
conquest. That is what Pope Paul VI said.
La casa común de todos los hombres
The common home
debe continuar
of all
levantándose
men must
sobre
continue
una
to
recta
rise on
comprensión
the
de la fraternidad
foundations of a
universal
right understanding
y
of
sobre el
universal
respeto de
fraternity
la
and respect
sacralidad
for the
de
sacredness
cada
of
vida
every
humana,
human
de
life,
cada hombre,
of
de
every
cada mujer,
man and every
de
woman,
los pobres,
the
de
poor,
los ancianos,
the
de
elderly,
los niños,
children,
de los enfermos,
the
de
infirm,
los no
the
nacidos, de
unborn,
los desocupados,
the
de
unemployed,
los abandonados,
the
de
abandoned,
los que se juzgan
and those
descartables
considered
porque no se
disposable
los considera más
because
que
they are
números
only
de una
considered
u otra
as part of
estadística.
one or other statistic.
La casa común de todos
This
los
common
hombres
home
debe
of
también
all
edificarse
men and women
sobre la
must also be built on the
comprensión
understanding
de una
of a
cierta
certain
sacralidad
sacredness
de la
of
naturaleza creada.
created nature.
Tal comprensión y respeto exigen un
Now,
grado
such
superior
understanding
de
and respect call
sabiduría
for a higher degree
que acepte
of wisdom,
la trascendencia,
one which accepts
la de uno
transcendence,
mismo, que renuncia a la
and at the same
construcción de
time
una élite
rejects the creation
omnipotente
of an
y
all-powerful elite,
comprenda que el
and
sentido pleno
recognizes
de la
that the
vida
full meaning
singular y
of
colectiva
individual and
se da en el
collective life
servicio
is found
abnegado
in
de
the
los
selfless
demás
service to
y en el
others,
uso prudente
and
y
in the sage
respetuoso
and
de
respectful
la
use
creación
of
para el bien
creation
común.
for the common good.
Repitiendo las palabras de Pablo VI,
To repeat the
el
words of Pope
edificio
Paul
de la
VI, the
civilización
edifice
moderna
of modern
debe
civilization has
levantarse
to be built
como principios
on
espirituales,
spiritual
los
principles,
únicos
for they are
capaces
the only
no
ones
solo de
capable
sostenerlo,
not only of
sino
supporting it,
también de iluminarlo.
but also of shedding light on it.
El gaucho Martín Fierro,
El Gaucho Martín
un
Fierro,
clásico
a classic
de la
of
literatura
literature
de mi tierra natal,
in my native land,
canta: los hermanos
sings,
sean unidos porque esa
brothers
es la
should
ley
stand
primera.
by each other because this is the
Tengan
first
unión
law.
verdadera en cualquier
Keep a
tiempo
true
que
bond
sea,
between you always,
porque
at
si
every
entre
time,
ellos
because
pelean,
if you fight
los
amongst
devoran los
yourselves,
de afuera.
you'll be devoured by those outside.
El mundo contemporáneo,
The
aparentemente
contemporary world,
conexo,
so apparently connected,
experimenta
is
una
experiencing
creciente y
a
sostenida
growing and steady
fragmentación
social
social
fragmentation,
que pone en
which
riesgo
places
todo
at risk
fundamento de la
the
vida
foundations
social
of social
y
life,
por lo tanto
and consequently
termina por
leads to
enfrentarnos unos con otros
battles
para preservar los
between
propios
ourselves to
intereses.
defend our conflicting
El
interests.
tiempo presente nos invita
The
a
present time
privilegiar
invites us to give
acciones
priority to
que
actions
generen
which
dinamismos
generate
nuevos en
new
la sociedad
processes in
hasta que
society
fructifiquen
so as to
en
bear fruit
importantes y
in significant
positivos
and positive
acontecimientos históricos.
historical events.
No podemos permitirnos postergar algunas
We cannot
agendas.
permit ourselves to postpone
para el
certain
futuro.
agendas for the future.
El futuro nos pide
The
decisiones
future
críticas
demands of
y
us
globales
critical and
de
global
cara a los
decisions
conflictos
in the
mundiales
face of
que
worldwide
aumentan
conflicts
el
which
número de
increase the
excluidos
number of the
y
excluded
necesitados.
and those in need.
La loable construcción jurídica
The
internacional
praiseworthy
de la
international juridical
Organización de las
framework
Naciones
of the
Unidas
United Nations
y de todas
Organization
sus realizaciones,
and of all its activities,
perfeccionable como cualquier otra
like
obra
any
humana
other human
y al
endeavor,
mismo
can be
tiempo
improved,
necesaria,
yet it remains
puede ser
necessary.
prenda de un
At the same
futuro
time, it can be
seguro
the
y
pledge
feliz
of a secure and
para
happy
las
future
generaciones futuras.
for future generations.
Y lo será si los
And so it will
representantes
if
de
the
los estados
representatives
sabrán
of the
dejar de
states
lado
can set aside
intereses sectoriales e
partisan
ideologías
and ideological
y buscar
interests and
sinceramente
sincerely
el
strive
servicio del bien
to serve
común.
the common good.
Pido a Dios Todopoderoso que
I
así
pray
sea.
to Almighty
Y les
God
aseguro
that
mi
this will be the
apoyo,
case,
mi
and I assure you
oración
of my
y el
support
apoyo
and my
y las
prayers and the
oraciones
support and
de todos
prayers
los fieles
of
de la
all the
Iglesia
faithful
Católica
of the Catholic
para
Church,
que esta
that this
institución,
institution,
todos sus
all its
Estados
member
miembros
states,
y cada
and
uno de
each
sus
of its
funcionarios
officials
rinda
will
siempre un
always
servicio
render
eficaz
an
a la
effective service
humanidad,
to mankind,
un servicio
a
respetuoso
service
de la
respectable,
diversidad
respectful of
y
diversity,
que sepa
and
potenciar
capable of bringing
para el
about,
bien
for
común,
the sake of our
lo
common
mejor
good,
de
the
cada
best
pueblo
in each
y de
people
cada ciudadano.
and in every
Que Dios
individual.
los bendiga a todos.
Upon all of you, may God bless you all.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to express, as already has been done with the hands, our deep appreciation to His Holiness Pope Francis for this very important statement, a statement for the reflection and inspiration for all of us. I request representatives to be kind enough to remain at their seats while we accompany His Holiness out of the General Assembly Hall. The summit for the adoption of the post-2015 development agenda will begin shortly. In the interim period, immediately following the adjournment of this meeting, I invite representatives to remain seated and view the special performances and presentations on the occasion of the convening of the summit. The meeting is adjourned.
Wir müssen drehen theoretisch und willst du drehen? Einer muss. Ja. Dann baue ich zurück. Okay. Hilfe brauche ich. Ja. Hast du? Mir ist es egal, ich meine, wie du willst. Ja.
Ich danke Ihnen. Scheiße, jetzt ist er weg.
Ist schon weg. Jennings?
Nein, der andere. Wie heißt der Tonner?